Well, good evening and welcome to the Review Cinema. My name is Mark Elwood. I'm actually the chair of the board of the not-for-profit Review Cinema. It was interesting when I saw this guy who had signed up to be a candidate for the mayor of Toronto. I thought, well, let me just check this guy out. And it was Ari Goldkind. And I thought, wow, this is a really interesting guy. So I emailed him and offered a couple of tips and so on. And one thing led to another. And so as Ari's been running his campaign, I offered to help a little bit. And so the connection here, because I'm familiar with the cinema, so Ari's rented this place tonight. You should know we didn't provide any special favors. We got to make money too here at the Review. But I was interested in Ari because of some of the things that he stands for and talks about. And like many of you, frustrated with some of the things going on in the city. As a person who's engaged, my children are here, we're engaged as well at High Park here, Roncesvalles. We'd like to see the city do wonderful things. And we have great visions for what this city could become, including a place that has a wonderful not-for-profit cinema. So when I saw what Ari was thinking about, I thought, gee, there's a guy who's talking some real great common sense, some no BS, as we say in the campaign, and has a way of moving things forward in ways that other candidates hadn't, to my mind. We've been out talking to people, and we find one of the conclusions is that notwithstanding the polls that you see, there isn't a candidate that's really standing out for people. Oh, sure, the polls show this and that. But people seem to be hungry for somebody that's a little bit different, that brings some innovative ideas. And those ideas need to be innovative at this time in the city where lots of promises are being made, but there's not a whole lot of money to pay for them. And so Ari talks about how we need to pay, how we need to invest in the city, and that kind of excited me. And so he's going to talk about that a little bit later as well, and I hope you too will be excited by that. So I'm delighted to be here, not only as my role as the Review, but also as helping out Ari in his campaign. And we're going to have his very good friend, Jody Kovitz, do a more formal introduction. So I'm going to have her speak. Then Ari's going to speak. And then later on, we'll do some questions and answers. So we want you thinking about your absolute toughest question. Sometimes I teach presentation skills, and we have a thing we call, who can ask the nastiest question? Ari wants nasty questions. The tougher, the better. So think of those. And so after he speaks, we'll then stop and we'll take questions from the audience, and you'll be able to hit him. He says, hit me with anything you like, and so we'll see how he does with that. So here's Jody Kovitz to introduce Ari. Jody.
Thank you, Mark, and I just want to say thank you to Mark initially for organizing tonight's event. We're so grateful for your energy. Thank you all for coming. How are you all tonight? Good. We're so thrilled that you're here, and I feel so honored to have the opportunity to introduce Ari to you tonight. I'll spend just a minute telling you about how we got here, and then why I believe in him, and then he'll come and take the stage. So, for those of you that don't know, this started about 10 months ago. We were on a walk and talking about the state of our city. And for those of you who don't know Ari well, he's a voracious reader. He knows everything that's going on all over the world, quietly, has taught himself about US politics, world politics, municipal politics. And it was one of Ford's, fun days for him, and really an embarrassment for the rest of us. And that really started our conversation, although that was just really a small piece of it, thinking that our city deserves so much more than what we are presently dealing with and the mockery that's been made of our incredible, beautiful city. And he said, I think I could do a better job. And I looked at him and said, actually, you can. And I think you should. And that's how this started. And from then to now, we put together our team, and we've been working day in and day out because he can do better. And I believe in him, and everyone behind him believes in him. So why? Why Ari? There's so many reasons, and I would bore you for sure if I gave them all to you, and I'll just give you 3 tonight. First of all, Ari is doing and talks about, thinks about, plans for what is right. Not what is easy, not what people want to hear, but what is actually right for our city. And it's amazing to me to see the examples of things that he has said months and months ago. For example, this week, the conversation that we need to have about the police budget, which he'll get into more than I will. But it's a very difficult conversation for people to have, and people are afraid of raising that we have a $1 billion budget that we have to look at carefully. He raised it months ago. Nobody would touch it. This week, the whole city's talking about it, and Ari started that conversation. Ari does what's right, not what's easy, and that makes me very proud and believe in him. Second of all, Ari has a very strong vision for what our city needs to be great. He is a true leader in the full sense of the word. He researches what's going on himself, not a huge team of people. His team comes to him with ideas, but he has the ideas himself. What do we need to be a world-class city? What have other world-class cities done to improve their traffic situation, their gridlock, their community building, accessibility issues? He has the ideas, and he thinks constantly about how to bring them to life. So that is the second reason. He is a visionary, world-class leader, and he's thinking about the future for our Toronto. And number 3 of my list of 2,000 million ideas is that Ari is engaging and actually can get things done. He can bring a room full of people together and make them understand a very complicated issue in simple terms and get them on side and having the right conversation. And we can all see through the debates that are going on right now at City Hall about toilets and pencils and other such very important matters that this is a group that needs to be led to the right conversation. And Ari, through his wit, his charm, his ability to listen to people, hear what people have to say, can do this very daunting task of taking this very broken and disjointed council and moving them towards a solution with a very fresh perspective, and we like to call it new ideas and a fresh perspective. So with all that said, I'd love to, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to Ari Goldkind, running for mayor, and I believe in him, and you should too.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Anybody watch Seinfeld? Because after those 2 speeches, I need to pull a Costanza and say, that's enough. Good night, everybody, because those are 2 acts that are very tough to follow. So very simply, before I get going, I want to tell you a little bit about what tonight is, how I have it in my mind. You can also see that video in this day and age is very important. So this is all being shot, and we're going to do a lot of stuff with the video tonight. And the whole idea of what tonight is some of you may have the same questions from me that I get asked all the time. When are we going to see you in a debate? Why haven't you run for council? Why haven't I heard more about you? And wherever I go to these debates, what I notice is that every candidate that's famous, that's the brother of somebody, the wife of somebody, now the nephew of the notorious one, and we'll talk about him after, they're always reading. They're reading scripts, they're reading slogans, they're talking about water taxis, they're talking about moving faster, but nothing in my hand. There's no script tonight. I'm going to talk about things that matter to me, things that matter to the people I talk about as I move through the city. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I'm doing this and why I decided to take such a crazy leap, because I really have a day job that I love, and I thought I would get tarred and feathered given that my job doesn't attract a lot of popularity, but it's something I believe in deeply, and I'm going to tell you why the 10 years of what I've been doing for a living really revolves around my philosophy of what I think this city should be and where I think it's massively, massively falling behind. And I'm hoping that the things I talk about for the next little bit are going to be things that some of you go, yeah, that's what I talk about with my family too. That's what I am confused about, why nobody's saying these things out loud. And it's really meant to be those sorts of things that people are talking about on social media. They're not really about the other candidates. It's about a vision of this city 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now, that all I hear is sniping between every other candidate against themselves. And I'm always wondering, well, if you guys are all sniping against each other now, how can you make the claim that on October 28th or January 15th, you're going to get 43 other councillors to work well with you? I don't understand that. And the bottom line to this little bit of an introduction is people say, well, how if you were elected? And, you know, I get the whole idea, the long shot to this, but that doesn't make something not worth trying. But I get told, well, you're not an insider. You know, how are you going to convince 43, 44 people to vote your way? Well, you're all smart people in this room. You know that the people that you've heard of now, that get the spotlight, that are at the debates, they bring a ton of baggage with them. And there are already people set up at council, and this is really important. We're going to talk about the issues that I think matter, that you know that if one of the famous ones says jump, 22 other councillors are going to say how low. And my view is, you know, I'm putting stuff out there with a very clear mandate. And we're going to talk about the issues I believe in. I don't waffle on them. It was put very well that you can ask me, and we're going to get into the Q&A because this is really meant to be the town hall. If this was a circular thing like you see on when you watch CNN, the whole idea was to be surrounded and be in the firing line. But you may hear answers coming out of my mouth tonight that will shock you. And one of them that I can already tell you I will give is somebody's going to ask me a question tonight. I know it. And it's going to be about something I don't know a lot about. And rather than running to 6 advisors off the stage and ducking the question, I'm going to say I don't know. Because I think one of the finest things a leader can do is have a great team around him or her, and when you don't know something, you don't bluff it. You don't give a half-baked answer. You surround yourself with people who have devoted their lives to the subject. And as we get into these subjects, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Mark, I want to thank you for putting this together tonight. Mark put so much time into this. He lives in the area. This is a wonderful area in Roncesvalles. He's helped me out tremendously. His passion, his enthusiasm is tremendous, and I'm constantly amazed by how for him the sun is always out whenever it's even raining. So I really appreciate you being here, Mark. And Mark's kids are in here somewhere, they were, so if they're there they are, so I want to say hi you too. I'm very happy you're here. And Jody, I want to say thank you. This was something that came out of my mouth 10 months ago that I never meant. I never meant to get into politics. People say you're in politics. I don't even think I am. I'm just standing on a stage talking about things that matter, and my view is the more and more people that hear it, the more people that hear what I say and go, wait a minute. I'm not hearing that from the people who've been famous for 30 years and have drawn a public salary for 30 years. Why am I hearing it from this guy who, he goes to work every day? I can't kiss every baby. We're going to talk about campaigning. I can't match a $1.3 million war chest that various candidates have. All I can do is appeal to people's common sense and desire to see a city that has a different value than I think it's been given now. So let me now turn into some things that are full of substance. I say that word now, and it has a different connotation in Toronto now. But look, one of the lines I said that people responded to is when I started, people said, "Well, wait a minute, you're a criminal lawyer. How in the world are you going to convince a soccer mom to vote for somebody who's a criminal lawyer?" And just out of my mouth, I said, I'd rather have a lawyer running for mayor than a mayor running to his lawyer. And that's really how this all started. So let's talk about, okay. This must be what it feels like to be Jerry Seinfeld, like 1/10 of a thing. Let's talk about how, for me, everything starts with a vision. This is not a broke city. It's not. And where the Fords, and I'm really not going to talk about a lot of other candidates or even him tonight. I've stood on stage next to him. It's beyond creepy, but that's a different story. But, you know, this has turned into a city of no. And it's a really sad state of affairs that everything in this city is no. We can't do it. We shouldn't do it. It's not worth doing it. And it's really something that makes me wake up because, you know, and I know you're not supposed to say this out loud when you're running for public office. I've traveled. Like so many of you, I've been around the world. Everywhere I go that are successful, innovative, technologically smart cities, they're doing things that we don't do, that we should be doing without any thought process whatsoever. But you go down to city council, and this is shocking. I've actually gone down there and started to watch because I find it's like a star echo chamber where it's everybody digging in their heels, and they seem to forget that this is Toronto. You're all different. You're all from different walks of life. Everybody goes home. I bet you a lot of people don't even live around here. Some of you are connected to me in different ways. Some subwayed, some drove, some live in houses, some live in condos. But when you live in a city that has a culture of no, we can't get things done. And let me start with the thing that people say is the most unpopular. Everybody okay over there? All right, just checking. I really am unscripted, so if anybody coughs or sneezes, you're going to get a bless you. So let me start with the thing that people, when they hear it, there's something called a knee-jerk reaction. And my philosophy, and it informs everything it is that I've been very lucky in life. I was born in an area of Toronto where it's lucky to be a little bit better, a little bit more privileged. I lucked into being physically abled. And in this city, and again, I'm hoping some of you have questions about this, this is not an accessible city. This is a city, you look at me, I'm 6'1", I'm fine, I can do what I want to do, but I have a complete passion for the issue of accessibility. Do you hear anybody else talking about it in this city? It's because they're voiceless. And the thing that I feel passionate about is being a voice for voiceless. So I can get into a subway, any subway I want to get into. I can get onto any bus I want to get onto. I can get onto any streetcar I want to get onto. Any of you read the news in the last 2 weeks? This is just topical. This city has run out of money to make TTC stations accessible. Run out of money. That, to me, is a huge reason why I'm standing here, because it's absolutely horse manure. It's ridiculous. And for us, so many of us take it for granted. We think to ourselves, well, yeah, all right, well, if they say we're out of money, we're out of money. But we're not out of money. And so this is the sort of philosophical approach I have, that because I've been lucky, because I was born into a certain family, I look a certain way, I've been lucky enough to be healthy, that there is a whole segment of this society that has been left behind. And when I hear the term Toronto the Good, which I think most of you have probably heard a lot, all I ever think is Toronto the Good should be Toronto the Much Better. And let me tell you some ways that I believe very, very passionately that Toronto could be so much better. We have a city that theoretically has 3 million people with diverse interests. They're from all over the world. This is a city, I think I just saw it in today's paper, somebody can shout out if I'm wrong, that roughly 48% of people living in Toronto now, 48% of people were not born in Toronto. That is a fascinating statistic. But when you watch politics and you watch the Big Five and the famous ones and all of this, they all argue as if we're all so different. Well, we're not. Most people have families. Most people want good jobs. And in this city, most people want it to be a little bit easier to get around. So what do you have being offered as transit plans, which is one of the things that woke me up? Well, one candidate's big idea is 10% more buses. That's just fantastic. Another candidate's big idea is, if I said that person's name, you'd all give me a blank look. Another candidate's idea involved water taxis. Okay? And this is serious stuff. But here's the thing. You have those candidates saying out loud, and we're going to talk about, everybody hear the term left-right when it comes to Chow, Tory, and all of this. I don't get how any issue in this city is left-right. It actually makes no sense to me. It's not how my brain works. I would imagine it's not how a lot of your brains work, and here's an example. You would hope that there would be a great candidate on the traditional left. A candidate that says, you know, people in this city who have done well should be paying a little bit more. So people who haven't had the same lucky breaks, people who haven't had the same good fortune, pay a little bit less. You have a current mayor that sees Toronto as a place to drive into town in his Escalade, park underneath City Hall, turn off the heated leather seats in the Escalade, go upstairs in some elevator because he doesn't take the stairs, and then he drives right back to his area without any enjoyment of what Toronto is. Well, that is not at all what Toronto is. And that's a person who doesn't understand that somebody with his privilege, his gifts, his inheritance shouldn't be asking kids who live in areas that many of us in this room are lucky that we've been able to go a different way, have to pay $5 to go skating, have to pay $5 to go to a swimming pool. That's not the Toronto I believe in. Why this is a debate is even beyond me. So one of the biggest things of my platform is that if you can afford a house that's over $1.2 million, it's the property tax red herring. And it doesn't get cheers, and that's fine, because my point is we have to be honest about it. But for a couple extra $100 a year, and this is really what I am talking about, people who live in million-dollar houses, couple extra $100 a year can drastically change our transit system. And what happens is people knee-jerk reaction that, well, I don't want to do it. And one of the big things is because people don't trust. Trust. The word trust. Current politicians. So what do you have to choose from now? 5 famous, pedigreed, legacy politicians. And we're not even talking about the nephew who just signed up, if you all know who I'm talking about. I mean, 2 years, this guy's in a 2-year business diploma program. It took him 6 years to do. Sounds like a natural-born leader to me. I mean, so it's just unbelievable. I mean, you see it in the States with Bush. You see it now in Toronto. It's not the right thing. And this city needs to be more welcoming to outside ideas. Back to where I was. You would think that somebody on the left, and she's very, very famous, would actually be brazen enough to say, you know what, I'm not joining Rob Ford and I'm not joining John Tory on their no tax raise promise. And it isn't happening. And nobody's called it out. No reporter. I mean, they're busy chasing Ford around, climbing jungle gyms in Woburn Park, but nobody has called it out. And if you're a person in this city who cares about getting around, cares about improving the city, the word infrastructure, kind of boring, a little bit boring, but that's what the city needs. You have 3 candidates, one of whom everybody says is likely to be the mayor, who all have the same position on investing in Toronto. That is not my vision of what Toronto is. So I've put it out there. I've had lots of great feedback from great writers, Post, Globe, Star. I'm sure some of you have seen the articles which are all like, he's the candidate. I'm not going to compliment myself up here like I'm Bob Dole talking in the third person, but he's the candidate saying truthful things about what we'll need to get this city moving. So I wanted everybody, as I move into some certain issues, to understand my philosophy that without Torontonians standing up and saying, you know what, no is not the final answer. We need to start saying yes to things. We need to have pilot projects. We need to be bold. And as you ask me questions as we get through on every issue, any issue that matters to you, you're going to see that I probably have a view of things that you're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. Why am I not hearing about it? So let's turn to one of those issues. Does everybody in the room know what congestion pricing means? Does anybody, just show of hands? I'm imagining no, so not, okay, so not a lot. So anybody in this room drive? Any drivers? Okay, a lot of drivers. And you always hear this term, war on the car. It's the stupidest term I've ever heard. Because the philosophy of transit should be deprioritize the car. Deprioritize the car in city planning. And I'm a driver. I drive. I'm driving all over the city to different courthouses, Brampton, Scarborough, Etobicoke. But when you deprioritize the car, this is counterintuitive. What do you think that actually does for drivers? It actually makes driving easier. And the reason the roads are so gridlocked is because we don't price them appropriately. This is something that has been studied all over the world. Every reporter knows it. Every politician knows about it. So let me tell you what I mean by that, and then we're going to play a very quick video, the congestion video which we put out that got a lot of attention. So congestion pricing is, for example, you know, as I'm sure everybody in the room knows, that the DVP, which is the Don Valley Parkway, is the parking lot. It doesn't move. It never moves. The Gardner now doesn't move. I've put out policies which have got a lot of attention about tolling those and charging people who use those. Now, why is that so important? How many of you in this room don't drive? a big number. How do you feel about the fact that you're paying to subsidize 75% of 905 using that road, $400 million a year to fix it and to keep it going, but you're paying for that even though you've made a decision, environmentally smart, planning-wise smart, to not drive. You're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to keep those roads up. That's one example of road pricing. The second example of road pricing is that you actually pay people to use the roads. So if you're crisscrossing Toronto, if you're coming into Toronto, you pay 50 cents, you pay $1.50. And I'm expecting some questions back, because when I do this and I give these kinds of talks, people say, well, won't that have a disproportionate effect on people who don't have a lot of money and people who are trying to get to work? It's the opposite. So I'd like to play that video now if we could. Could we play that congestion pricing, and we'll get into that in 1 second. This is a video we put together that a lot of people have really liked.
This is a city that has terrible gridlock. It's like a heart. The arteries and the veins are all constricted. And the only way you can reduce gridlock is being honest about the problem. And we price our roads too cheaply. Sitting on the DVP all day, all night, backed up from Dundas all the way up to 401 now. People are paying $1.40 a litre to sit in that kind of traffic jam. The basic law of supply and demand dictates everything. But in Toronto, the only time we don't talk supply and demand is our roads, because we're used to them being free. But they're not free. The problem is it's costing us time. It's costing us gas. We sit on the roads, bumper to bumper traffic. These are just problems that no other candidate is providing a solution. I am. Today, I am announcing a congestion charge pricing plan. It is the only way to address gridlock. We need to toll the DVP and the Gardiner. When you build transit, it doesn't mean that it's going to reduce gridlock. Yes, it may convince some people to take transit, but other people will replace the roadway that's being used if we don't price transit accordingly. All people of Toronto pay for the maintenance and infrastructure, the repair of those roadways, yet many people in Toronto don't drive. Saying to people, particularly 75% who don't live in Toronto that use those roadways, you should be paying for your use of that roadway. But it's a win-win, because you're going to be moving again. Tolls don't go far enough though, because what you may end up doing is making other roadways more packed. And we need to create a zone, 427 on the west, Gardiner on the south, DVP on the east, 401 on the north. And anybody coming into town, and even people owning cars in Toronto, would pay a congestion charge. You're going to pay a lot more during rush hour. If you come in late at night to support the arts, to go to a restaurant, to go to a baseball game, or on the weekend, there will probably be no charge. But during the times that this city is gridlocked, we need to start pricing our roadways. Other cities have tried this and have implemented it. London and Stockholm. London charges about $15, $20 a day to come into the city. Tolls will save people money. It's a radical thing to say that a new tax, which is what people call tolls, will actually save you money. You know what gridlock costs the average driver today in 2014? About $1,600 plus once you add everything up. It is a win-win in every financial way. Let aside the stress and anxiety that people have sitting like sardines on the Gardiner and DVP and Lakeshore every day. We need to pay for our roads. Every major candidate for mayor knows it. We need to be smarter about this, and we need to learn from other cities where this has worked. The major candidates won't touch it. I will. Do you know why? That's what leadership is all about. And my candidacy is not about saying no to everything. It's about solving problems.
I don't know if anybody noticed my dog was in there too, so that's important for me, because that's a big issue, and because we're not going to keep everybody here till forever, I won't talk about my dog and how that factors into things, because my view again is we use the term livable. So many people use the term livable, but there's very little talked about out of this election about making the city more livable. Parks, green space, the environment seems to be an issue that is absolutely absent from this discussion. And it's something that we have a lot of very exciting stuff coming out. I want to go back to your question because I don't duck any questions. So back to the congestion about how you do it. You use the 407 type transponder technology. It's on your license in 5 years. Vancouver is just starting to put it in, all these countries. So it's not like you stop at a toll booth and people can probably picture that. It backs everything up. You just drive, and the prices, and this is fascinating about it, and this has been proven to work. It's an amazing thing. The prices change based on how busy the road is at that particular time. So if the road is packed, you're going to pay a few extra cents to use it. If the road is not, or as I said, you saw it right from the video. It's a weekend, you're going to a ball game, you're using the city, arts and culture, you're coming to a play, there's no charge. But the reason that the roads are so unbelievably congested is because the laws of supply and demand are ignored. They're not priced appropriately. And this is a city that is having a heart attack on its roadways. Every artery is constricted, every vein is blocked, and nothing is being done about it. And the reason why I wanted to show that video is because it covers a lot of things. I'm not saying anything that is really rocket science. It's that nobody else has the guts to say it because they know if you say it, people won't vote for you. Thank you. I actually don't care. How bizarre is that I've asked all of you to come tonight, and I say, if somebody doesn't like it, I've gone to so many campaign events and people hear it right away, the knee-jerk reaction. They get mad, they get upset, and they'll say, I'll never vote for you. Okay, so don't. And I just think that there's something refreshing about that, and wherever we go, and we have a great team and volunteers, and Melissa, who's been a great volunteer, has come, and she's seen it. When people don't want a quick slogan, they don't want a 9-second soundbite, people start to respond to this, because for any of you who've been stuck in traffic, or, choose my words carefully, at Yonge and Eglinton or on the Yonge line, genital to genital with your neighbor because it's so packed, people understand that the solutions here are not complicated. But it involves investing in a city because, and I don't know about you, and then we'll move on to the next subject, stress, anxiety, your time is not valued because there's no price on it. But if you can get moving faster, there's no war on the car. If you have a planning policy in this city that deprioritizes the car, TTC, biking, comes first. People pretend that if you have more bike lanes, it means driving will be terrible. It's absolutely not the case. I don't bike. But this is a city that should be more pedestrian-friendly, more bike-friendly, far more transit-friendly, and why there's this weird, stupid argument out in Scarborough about subway versus LRT is mind-boggling. I mean, you have a candidate, and this is as far as I'll go on this, who was the TTC chair. She was the TTC chair, and for years knew that LRT made more sense, was better, was cheaper. But because she decided, and this is what makes me the opposite of all of this, she decided because Rob Ford pre-crack was so popular. That's true. That's true. Pre-crack was so popular, was so big in Scarborough. Well, was so big in Scarborough that to run for mayor, she absolutely flip-flopped in a craven political way to run for mayor. And you can see how that campaign is doing now. The difference between her is she gets a seat at the debate. I don't get to do it, so that's why I'm so happy you're all here. Let's move to another issue that's something that as a lawyer and a criminal lawyer, it's something I'm very passionate about. And if you know the percentage of people that are affected somehow by mental illness, even not theirs, but through a relative, it really informs what I want to do. And by the way, anybody know how well that subject polls when they do ranks of what appeals to voters and what doesn't? It doesn't rank at all. I couldn't care less. I really couldn't care less because it's important and it's the right thing to talk about. And that leads me into talking very briefly, as best as I can, about the police. Last week, I watched 1 week of a debate about toilets. I'm being serious, by the way. About toilets at Sugar Beach and chairs and umbrellas and God knows what. And it was just this counselor named Denzel Minnen Wrong, as far as I'm concerned, who's standing there with a sign and all this. And it's such horse crap because it misses the point of what the city is about. And this goes back to what I'm talking about, the failings of council when it comes to issues that really matter. They're talking about nonsense, pencils at City Hall, councillors' their office budgets. It's a $1 billion police budget. If any of you pay property taxes in this city, and many of you do, when I give you this number, people go, you have to be kidding me. If you own a house that's $500,000, and in this city, find one, but that's roughly $2,500 a year in property taxes, $2,500. Guess how much you're paying towards the police budget out of that $2,500. It's about $500. $500, if not more, towards the police budget. And it is staggering, because when you're talking about councillors' budgets of $10,000, the toilets, it is such a drop in the bucket. Now that didn't come out right, but it's such a drop in the bucket about what really matters in this city. But guess how many councillors, when this issue came up to sign the budget and all this, guess how many councillors out of 44 asked a question about the police budget before rubber stamping it? Guess how many councillors, given how many councillors talk about every issue on the table, from Nelson Mandela flags to Rob Ford's this to paving streets. Guess how many? Anybody? One. No, not him. And I invited him tonight, but no, not him. Believe it or not, not him. One, Joe Mihevik, the councillor in my ward. This is a $1 billion item. And what I'm putting out, and stay tuned because there's a lot more coming out, is that this may not affect a lot of our lives in here. When most people in this city deal with police officers, and there are people in this room who know this issue very, very well, things often get out of hand. And when I go to work, I've come up with a position that if you all go home today to a website called spacing.ca, it's one of the most beautiful stories somebody could have written about what I'm doing and why it matters, and why, even though I won't have the name recognition of Olivia Chow or John Tory, and they've earned it, they've built their equity, and I totally get that. And some of you will ask, why didn't I run for council? I'm expecting that question. How police deal with mentally ill people, how police deal with people that don't have a voice, is what I do every day for a living, and I see it in a way that most people can't appreciate. A lot of people in this room can't, but depending on where I go throughout the city, people live it and breathe it. So I'm going to ask Tech, whatever it's called, to play the camera video. We're going to try it. We'll see, and then we'll talk about it very quickly. One of the most important issues that I'll be talking about is the need for police lapel cameras. You might say, what is that? It's a little camera that sits right here. It shows everything that happens when a police officer deals with a member of the public. This is a win-win for both the police and for members of the public. This will result in the savings of tens of millions of dollars of court time. It could put a criminal lawyer like me out of business. Every day I'm in court, and all we argue about is what happened between the accused person and the police officer. This will save tens of millions of dollars in court time. Police brutality investigations, police use of force complaints, civilian complaints. I believe that when we see everything that happens, as a society, we're better off for it. I hope you agree. This is a $700 or $800 investment that will pay for itself many, many times over. Police organizations throughout North America support it, and this will be a very important issue to me, which will increase trust between the police and the members of the public that the police serve and protect. That's an issue. Does everybody understand from that video what lapel cameras are? So what I do all day in court, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars is wasted because I spend weeks, days cross-examining police officers when my client comes into the cells, and the client, who may be a very, very bad person, there's no doubt about it. I defend people who deserve whatever, a lot of what they get. But they come into the cells black and blue, beaten to a pulp, full of bruises, and I look at them, I go, you're charged with drinking and driving, you're charged with something that has nothing to do with what's on their face. And guess what I'm told? You can all imagine. And I read their charge list, and it comes back, and this is very common by this is not like a minor thing. It's a very well-known thing in what we do for a living. And it comes back, and I see theft or drinking and driving, and then it says assault, resist, arrest. Yeah, so you knew where this is going. And it's an extraordinarily difficult thing in this city where a lot of this city doesn't look like a lot of us in here. And I think the gentleman there put it about the term serve and protect. There is a culture in this city now between the police force, G20, how we deal with the mentally ill, how things are escalated between police and people they serve and protect versus de-escalated. And when I talk about cameras, and this is why it's something that's really caught on for us and our campaign, because my belief is everything should see the light of day. It should not be us versus them. There should not be the mentality that we're at war with the citizens of our city. And thank you. And I appreciate good heckles, bad heckles too. We should not be at war with the people of this city. And this isn't the thing, when I say this out loud, people say, Ari, don't say that, don't say that. There are great police officers. I deal with them every day. But does everybody know what the term thin blue line means? Does that mean anything to anybody in the room? Thin blue line means there are a lot of police officers who start out wanting to be very, very good. They want to save cats from trees, they want to help people, they want to do very good work. But for a new young officer who's got all the right intentions, when you get into the old boys network, everybody knows what that means, people start to see what really happens on the streets, and if you say anything about it, or if you complain to a superior, bye-bye career, bye-bye having a partner. And it's a huge thing in policing. So this isn't just a budget issue of the $1 billion. This is about increasing trust between people and communities and the police service that theoretically serves and protects us. And when you do that, when you increase trust, when you make it so that the gun doesn't come out first, the taser doesn't come out first, because what does the camera do? This is the key. And again, I find this a really fascinating thing because it's about human behavior. If you knew, every one of you in this room, if you knew that you were being watched at your job, when you're arguing with your wife, when you're arguing with your boyfriend, and you knew that it could come back to be seen, what is the one thing it would tend to do? And that's the word behavior. Again, it moderates your behavior. And that is a critical thing that camera that I'm proposing, which again, if you go home and look at the news last week, we got a lot of great play from it because people are like, where did that come from? I'm not putting anything out there that's, we're not going to dome the city because the weather sucks in the winter. I mean, this is all serious, serious stuff. And that got a lot of play. And the mental health aspect, we're coming out with a lot of things about, because you saw one candidate's plan is she wanted more cops to show up when somebody's in the throes of a mental health crisis. Somebody needs help. So her solution was have more police there. If you know anything about, then these may be dry issues to many of you, but I talk about what I'm passionate about because I think one of the greatest values you can do as somebody who's lucky or fortunate is to care about people that the city tends to neglect, or people who haven't had the same breaks that we have. Now, some people find that philosophy wacky. Don't vote for me. Don't listen to these things, but it really does resonate with a lot of people who think that we're sort of in this together. And the gated community idea, which at least one of the famous candidates have, which, the gated community, no to everything, everybody else is over there, I'm over here, that is not my philosophy of Toronto. And that, let me just ask, did everybody hear about what Doug Ford, for example, said about the people in the group homes? That's right. Did that bother anybody? That's right. And this is sort of the philosophy of Toronto that people need to call BS on. And now that you have these dynasties, it's all dynasties in this city that are running. There's a very, very closed idea to an outsider running for office. Now, let me get to one of the questions. Why am I not in a debate? I get asked this everywhere I go. They have closed it. It's those 5 candidates. No matter that one of those campaigns is over, it's done, it's dead, those are the 5. We thought that if we kept putting more stuff out, people will... Well, I'll tell you what the editor of, we've spoken to the editor, I mean, we're going to get a little bit inside baseball. Anybody want to get a little bit inside baseball about the dirt of how all this works? All right. By the way, as you all know, because some of you know, most of you don't know me, I never intended to run for anything. I still think it's bizarre that I'm standing here. But what we're trying to do is put the right thing out. So we keep hearing over and over, social media, where I go, when we campaign, why aren't you at a debate? You get into a debate, you're going to inspire people. You're providing a vision. You're talking about Toronto 10, 15 years from now. Wait till you hear in the next couple of weeks what we're going to talk about in terms of doing with the gardener. It's amazing. It's amazing what we're going to come out with very soon about what should be done with the gardener. Just stuff that makes sense. And people say, well, why don't I hear about you? Well, I'm told, and I'm actually not kidding now, unless I jump off the CN Tower with a diaper on that says Rob Ford and I parachute out and something, can't get attention. Unless I get myself some dreadlocks and sing to a child that I don't have and put it on YouTube, I'm not going to get, I mean, you may know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to get attention. And you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pull a stunt. And then we've met with the editors of the Globe and the Star. And they say, well, there's a porn star running. There's a S&M queen running. There's this running and that running. And if we talk about you, maybe they'll call up and bug. I just don't get it. And at the end of the day, because somebody just, you know who I'm talking about with a campaign that doesn't resonate, booked to every debate. These debates are booked. But what we're trying to do is get enough of a groundswell and putting enough good stuff out into the world that people say, wait a minute, we want a leader. We want somebody who talks about a Toronto we can be proud of. So much of what I'm talking about, and again, I want to get to questions about issues that matter to you because I can't touch upon 20 of them, but the environment. Nobody, again, as I said at the beginning, is talking about that. Nobody talks about cars in that way. Nobody talks about solar. Nobody talks about green space. Nobody talks about the fact that the city has a very significant aging population. Very few people talk about community housing, which many of us, but for the grace of God, don't have a lot of exposure to. But again, we're told we're out of money. I talked about accessibility issues. One of my closest friends is at the top of the theater here in her brand new wheelchair. That is a great gizmo, by the way. She has a wheelchair that rises up. She's back there. Say hi, Maria. I want to embarrass you. So, you know, these are all issues that matter. So I want to start getting into some questions now, just given the time. But what's very important before I have Mark come up, and you're going to hear what I think about when you actually grill me and cross-examine me, which is the opposite of my day job where I'm doing it to other people, is it really is time that this city has a vision for 5, 10 years from now. To be putting billions and billions of dollars into the Pan Am Games, to be building all of these things, and we need an excuse to spend billions of dollars rather than the people of Toronto coming together and saying, you know what, this is a city worth investing in. My view, more than anything else that I can say, is that this is a city worth investing in. And when we have a conversation that is built around the power of no, which comes from these guys from Etobicoke, that for the manor born, that's where they come from. They don't need services. They don't use the city. They don't appreciate the people in the city, where it's sort of turned into now Kardashian celebrity for this guy. It is a damaging thing for the city. And I'll conclude on this. I would love it, and I say this actually openly, I would love it if I felt no need to be doing what I'm doing. That there was somebody standing up and saying, you know what, this jets at the airport thing, that's the no offense to every of you, I think it's the stupidest thing on the planet. We have one waterfront. All we do is keep blowing it and blowing it with these walls of condos so certain people can make lots of money without any parks, schools, infrastructure. Last week, one of the big candidates stood in a big lineup. Did anybody see this, to the islands on Saturday? Going to the islands, there was a big festival there on Saturday. If any of you know that the islands, which I love, I think is such a tremendous resource in this city, put out something on social media that went crazy, which is like, I'm in a big lineup. We need to have more ferries so we can get more and more people there on a Saturday. At some point, the people of this city need quiet. They need peace. It's something that's missing in a city where so many people are scrunched into condos together. So until there's a candidate who actually talks about what it's like to live in the city, to function, to share with people that you live around, a more pet-friendly city, a more kid-friendly city, a city that takes care of its elderly, a city that realizes that we're not broke and starts to funnel so much of the money that we really do waste away, I'm standing up here saying, why would we re-elect, or why would we elect somebody who's part of the very system, who is an insider in the very system that I'm looking to enter into, because what they're about is creating their own political legacy. I don't want my name on a road. I don't care if it's on a door. I don't care where it is. I'd like the city to move faster. I'd like the city to be smarter. I'd like the city to be a little bit more caring. And what I'm asking, when you go home and after this question and answer is over, that some of you think, wait a minute, if that guy got a little bit of attention, if that guy was in the paper, if that guy was a bit more famous, I think I'd give him a shot. Well, that's what I'm asking you to do when you go home, because if any of those things appeal to you, that's what I'm asking for you to just tell people about. We're really putting something out there that I consider the adult conversation that we're not having. It is not sufficient to me that candidates love puppies and love ice cream and keep saying all these things to be popular. We need to have somebody stepping up and saying things that may not be unpopular, but if they're right, they deserve people's attention. Thank you very much.
I'm wondering, in your mind, what are the kinds of revenue sources that would be most fair and most effective? And I'm thinking, you mentioned the idea of people who have very expensive properties, perhaps paying a surcharge on the value of that property. Presumably you would sort of graduate it or step it up depending on the value. But I'm also thinking of things, apparently, if I'm right, under the City of Toronto Act, we could also have a sales tax, or a portion of it. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the different kinds of ways of creating revenue.
Okay, that's a great question, and I think you may have gone to my website, hopefully, because I talk a lot about that. Bullet points, because I'm going to try and be a little bit briefer here. One, the City of Toronto does have tremendous taxing powers. But again, what happens when you hear the word tax? Everybody goes through the roof. But if you knew that you were having a 0.5% addition to the sales tax, and you knew that that would build us a transit system, we have a TTC that literally is a 1970s TTC. It's a 1970s TTC. It's ridiculous. Anybody go to Manhattan? I mean, you go out your hotel room and people say, well, it's not New York. Well, there are comparisons. You go out your hotel, would you ever rent a car? It's insane to think that. There's 17 lines you have to choose from. We have 2 lines. And the Shepherd thing, don't get me started on that. But the point is, we have a 1970s TTC. So revenue tool-wise, which to me is just a nice provincial way of saying tax, the reason people don't trust tax, I believe this very much, is because they don't trust the people who have taken our tax money. I absolutely believe that. If people saw somebody like me sitting in the mayor's office openly, a camera on my shoulder, none of these stupid secret meetings, going, you know what? We can save $20 a year, or if we put $20 from a purchase that you make for a car, a TV, or whatever, and you're going to see the biggest construction project going on in Toronto's history, building lines all over the place. Smart people know that you have to invest, and if you get that money back, it's not even a negotiating thing here. You know that if there are lines crisscrossing this city, we're being beaten by Portland, we're being beaten by Jerusalem. We're being beaten by all of these cities all over the world with populations that are literally a fifth of ours that have made these decisions years ago. So revenue tool-wise, the big one for me, let's use this one. Did anybody get the star? And I'll end the question on this. Anybody get the star? Okay. The star, because we put out something on what you saw above, and they went to all the councillors and said, do you agree with what I've put out? And I'm about to put something much bigger out on the land transfer tax. They all say, no, it should be abolished. So this is, anybody know how much the land transfer tax brings in? Anybody? $350 million roughly, 350. But you know what the thing is on the same poll? Everybody wants more services. More services, more stuff, more things bought, more that. But let's cancel the land transfer tax. So here's my position on property taxes and land transfer tax. And again, this may not be popular with people in the room. My position, which is almost insane for a guy on the stage in front of you to be saying this may not be popular and you may not applaud for it, is if you're a senior who's been in your house for 15 to 20 years and the rise of the market, this insane market in Toronto, hasn't affected you because you've been in your home as a person who lives there. You're not flipping. You're not gaining from all of this. What I'm proposing, and I'm not going to get too dry, because I try not to be horrifically boring, is you're not affected by the change that I would do to the mill rate. Mill rate is, again, very inside baseball, but the people that this affects would be people who have sold their houses and benefited from all of what Toronto gives to you. We're talking hundreds of dollars. We're not talking $15,000. And one of the things that drives me nuts, and if you're a real estate agent in this city, you should leave the room right now. Because I'll tell you why. No, I want to be a real estate agent. I make a lot more than I do now, but here's the point. When people are in these bidding wars for homes over $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, the real estate agent gets what? Five. So if you imagine what the numbers are on that, people are very happy that the agent gets 5%. I like real estate agents, a lot of friends of them, right? But that's not even a thought process. You know why? Because that's just what we do. That's just what it is. But when you say to somebody who's in that bracket, they won't change their life, they're still going to be able to afford to go to Cabo at the range that I'm talking about, yes, taxing the rich. I know nobody says it, but look, that's the world we live in. And if anybody can find a place in the world, North America, where tax cuts for the rich and raising taxes on poor people has ever worked, I would love to know where it is. It is absolutely BS. Trickle-down economics doesn't work. It is a philosophy that is toxic and diseased. So back to the tools. The mill rate in Toronto is lower than every other area in the GTA. It is not done fairly, but what I've specifically put out is that the kind of people that are at the precipice, if you're a first-time home buyer, I would annex it up. Again, I'm getting a little bit boring. I would annex it up to about $500,000 because that's the value of a house now. So there's nobody who's really in a precarious economic situation. Pensioners, seniors that would be touched by this. What do the other candidates want to do? Abolish it. How you abolish a tax that brings in $350 million and could be increased and not change people's lives who have benefited from the amazing things that Toronto has to offer. If it's unpopular, so be it. But I believe it to be true and right.
They'll keep the taxes down. We like to hear that. But they're afraid to say you can't if you want Michelin to pay for it.
Right. So here's the thing that I say. I mean, it is a sorry? Want me to repeat the question? Did everybody hear the question? The question was, isn't this what we hear from all the candidates, which has led to this toxic environment? And it's absolutely true, which is why it's so significant to me that the media haven't called out the three big candidates for being essentially the same. A guy named Rob Ford got elected on one line, stop the gravy train. He only stopped that train so he could get on, and my view is, basically he lives in the sleeping car, because what he has done is he's moved the conversation so far over to the right, that every conversation now starts with can't. Doug Ford wants it into his pocket. Why? So he can walk around to these houses, these centers, and what does he do? Peels off 20s. This is the insane city and conversation we're having now, and what I'm trying to do is call people out and say, look, this is not the city we should be living in.
Okay, let's go here.
I just learned that when making decisions, the mayor is only one vote of 45. So what do you think the actual role of the mayor is?
Okay.
The mayor is only one vote out of 45, so what's the actual role of the mayor?
All right, so I'm going to answer you in a way that I believe absolutely deeply when people say to me, how do you expect, if you were elected, if lightning struck and you were elected, how would you convince 44 councillors to vote your way? That's how I'm going to take that. Now, one, I believe in a term called leadership. And so how does a mayor bring people, and by the way, this doesn't have to be a mayor. This could be a counselor leading on an issue. There's a very fine counselor that I like very much named Kristen Wong-Tam. She leads. She puts herself out on issues, doesn't ask for people to love her, but she leads. So when you take a position that has moral authority, and I believe this absolutely, this city has a gulf in leadership. And what I'm looking for is somebody, and I would back off the stage. I would say, muzzle tov to that person, good luck to you, and go do it. It's not happening. When you're running on water taxis and delivery trucks and these things that I've talked about, when you turn a blind eye to the budget that's $1 billion, when you're busy talking about toilets, how does a mayor do it? Imagine the clarity of which I'm putting my mandate out. And because you've all given me your time, I'm not going to go through my 7-page plan unless somebody asks me a specific question. Every issue, we've taken a leadership position. So to answer your question, who's got a better shot? I'm going to put this gently. On not being polarizing as the new mayor. Does anybody in this room think that if one of the two big candidates were the mayor, they wouldn't immediately have 15 to 20 councillors immediately set up to fight what they're doing because of the fiefdoms? And it's unbelievable to me that this isn't being covered by our big media that only shine the light on photo ops. They're essentially stenographers in many ways. They don't, I mean, where's journalism? Here, my mandate from day one is clear. And I believe, and again, you said Gord Perks' name, there are a lot of very good counselors, but when you have the toxic environment of a Ford or now a Chow saying no property tax increases, they play to that. Imagine if somebody like me, or even somebody who adopted what I'm saying said, I'm running on this mandate. This is my mandate. I'm not asking to kiss babies. I'm not going to go to the opening of every door. I can't meet everybody because I don't have $1 million. But this guy or this woman got in on this mandate. Tax issues, policing, the rich pay a little bit more, this culture of no. You're going to find, to your question, 44 councillors who go, wait a minute. He's leading. He's got a vision. I can go back to my constituents, my ratepayers associations, and go, this guy's got a mandate. This guy's mandate couldn't be any clearer. If any of you in this room can literally say what the Big Five's clear mandate is, I'd like to know what it is, because when we go off on the streets, people go, I don't even know what they stand for, but I really like her. Well, that's not enough. This is a city that requires adult supervision.
Okay, let's go here.
I'd like to know where you stand on the ranked ballots.
Where do you stand on ranked ballots?
So let me answer this, because my answer to this is one word, which is shocking for me, who spends my life talking in court. Does everybody know what ranked ballots are? And if you don't, I'd really actually like to see a sign of hands if you don't. Okay, I'm going to tell you very quickly what it is, because it's coming. It'll be here in 2018. And I have to give her credit, Kathleen Wynne, who won in a landslide and deserves a chance to lead this province. She's in favor of it. What ranked ballots are, and this affects me, wherever we go, and you can imagine this. Look, I know I'm being videotaped, so this could be embarrassing in 2 months, but I'm going to say it anyway. Many of you might leave this room, and you might say, I kind of like him. I think he's interesting. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's not BSing me. But I won't vote for him because I have to vote strategically, because if I'm opposed to Tory, I have to vote for Chow. If I don't want Ford to get in, which is what really people feel passionate about, I'm going to have to vote for the person who's most likely to unseat him. Does that all make sense so far? What ranked ballots is it eliminates that, is that you actually vote with your conscience. You vote for the person you like the most, the person you like second, the person you like third, and your ballots are ranked so that the person who becomes mayor reflects people's votes with their conscience, not being strategic, and it eliminates what is going to be a massive issue on October 27th in this city for the reasons I've already told you about, where many of you may like somebody. It doesn't have to be me. It may be a very good candidate like David Suknacki, who I have a lot of respect for. But you may not vote for that person because you don't think he or she has a chance. And that is a terrible, terrible way to vote. And the last point I'll have is, you all know about the polling before the provincial election? Anybody follow the Hudak nonsense? You know, I'm going to get 1 million jobs by cutting $100,000. Hello? You know, I mean, all Tim Hudak had to do, this is a non sequitur, but all Tim Hudak had to do, and he would be the premier today, given the gas plant scandals, given all of this, he could have walked into a room, he could have been in the review theater right here, taken this microphone and going, "Hi everybody, my name is Tim Hudak, thanks for coming, vote." He'd be the premier, okay? So this guy does this, and all the polls say they're neck and neck. They're neck and neck, right? Did the polls turn out to be accurate? No, because what we learn, and I'm a big fan of human behavior, and again, I'm not going to be too boring, when people go into the ballot box, this still ties into the ranked ballots question, believe it or not, there's always a segue. When people go into the ballot box, they actually change their voting behavior. They move away from who they like and who they believe in and who they'd like to see leading, and they actually vote in the way that ranked ballots is meant to take away. I hope that made sense.
Let's go way up to the back. Question to the back? Yes?
All right. Did everybody hear that? I heard it well. Did everybody else hear that? Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you just before you sit down. There's actually a word for the thing that you're talking about, the concrete. What's the word? What they're called to separate the lanes out. That's right. So to me, that's what you're asking about. That's right. So that's what you're asking about. All right. So no, it's a great question, and I'm going to answer this in a way that I guarantee you probably, and again, this is who I am. 50% of people in this room will not like this answer. I drive. I drive all the time. But I actually think that we prioritize the car too much. Cities should be for people. They should not be for cars. I believe it. I think every successful city, from a planning perspective of moving people faster, they never make the car the king. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I sit in traffic all of the time, and I smile when I say this because I get pissed. I am ranting, I am not road raging, but now that I'm even running for mayor, I mean, I come up with all these ideas and I think to myself, it doesn't have to be this way. And I say to myself out loud all the time, I hate this stupid traffic, I'm stuck in traffic. And I am the traffic, so you clearly know what my thought process is. I am the traffic. And until this city gets that mentality that it's not everybody else to blame. This is a finger-pointing city. I'll give you an example on a bigger picture. This is a city, everybody blames everybody. Council blames this, council blames that, this, that. Every candidate makes these promises that can't be kept. Ford subways for free in Scarborough. Well, you've got a 30-year tax increase to pay for the subway in Scarborough. Nothing is free. Everybody points fingers, and then what happens when they get elected? There you go. So back to your question about the bike, even though I'm a driver, even though I would like to have 17 lanes on Eglinton so I can drive faster because I live at Bathurst and Eglinton, I want 62 lanes. As mayor, it is not supposed to be just about me. And we have a current mayor that everything is about him and people who subscribe to his philosophy of governance. I don't think that's an appropriate way to be. So when I talk about deprioritizing the car, bikes, TTC, and pedestrians, closing Yonge Street, possibly so that it becomes a real mall. Anybody go to Yorkville? One of my closest friends who's here lives in Yorkville. Cumberland and Yorkville are two streets that really lead nowhere. Why can't it be like a European city that from March to September, it's closed to traffic? Yes, some Escalades and Ferraris won't go around and around looking for women in front of the Hazelton Hotel with their stupid cars. But why is that not a pedestrian-friendly place that every night with artists and street musicians, this is what makes the city livable, to steal a term that somebody else came up with, and that's what makes Toronto great. It's people coming together, not people running back to their house in Rexdale where they park their Escalade and then fight with their wife. That's not my view of what Toronto is, and that's my answer to you, which is deprioritizing the car means at times taking lanes away. I might not like it, but I genuinely believe that when you do something like that and you make other forms of transportation priorities, you actually make driving easier. It's bizarre, it's counterintuitive, but guess what? It's been proven wherever else it's been tried.
Okay, another question. Yes, over here.
I know you wanted a hard question, but I'll ask it. I wonder what their life story would be with a criminal.
Okay, so I spend a lot of time in court, and I see people having a tough time, and I wonder what their life is going to be like, including people that look like yourself, and how do they get a second chance? I've sort of paraphrased a bit of that. So, Ari.
You touched upon 2 or 3 things. First of all, do you mind if I out you and introduce you? Okay. Samuel Getachew. Many of you have read about in the paper in the last week. You may not know that you have, but there's a certain gentleman in Toronto who made a complaint to the Integrity Commissioner. Sorry to embarrass you, but you know I'm an open book. So, made a complaint to the Integrity Commissioner. This will touch upon something that I did on Sunday, because I went to Youth Day, and you know about this. Mr. Getachew is an immigrant to this country. He's made a tremendous life for himself. He wrote a very early piece about me in the Huffington Post that a lot of people saw. He learned my life story. I learned yours. I'm going to answer your question, but he became very frustrated that the Integrity Commissioner seems to just talk about things that counselors complain about each other, and the moron Mammoliti, yes, I said it, the moron Mammoliti and all these other nonsense things. Mr. Getachew brought a complaint last week that, you know, if you want to have integrity and be the mayor of a city that has 3 million people, many of whom are immigrants that don't look like me, don't look like you, don't look like you, and you're going to devalue them. And by the way, I'm sure you'd all agree, being drunk doesn't make that crap come out of your mouth, and you know, it's insane. So the point is, he's brought that complaint to the Integrity Commissioner, who council still has to debate whether or not they're going to rehire her. See? So I want to give you a lot of credit for that. Back now to your question. So that's Mr. Getachew, and I'm glad you're here. You talked about 2 things. I saw one of the famous candidates go out to a place called Ephraim's Place last week and give some inane photo op pandering thing saying guns are bad and we're going to ban guns and et cetera, at a place where a young boy was killed, and it's a place that should be a bit more sacred. It shouldn't be used for politics. I mean, I'll touch upon this. We're not going to play another video. I went to Pride a couple weeks ago just to show to be there. I didn't take my team. I specifically asked volunteers not to go. I didn't want to turn it into a spectacle. We're coming out with a very interesting position on the gay community in Toronto, rather than people showing up in floats and going, look at me, and getting votes. You know, those floats leave, people pack up, and yet there's a huge segment of the LGBTQ community that gets left behind for a year. So we're talking about that. I go to Youth Day, and Samuel, you know this, Ford's on the stage on Sunday, and in a room at Yonge Dundas Square, it's full of people who don't look like me, Samuel, they look like you. Rob Ford gets introduced. Guess what the crowd does? They cheer him. This is somebody who's used the N-word. This is the city that we live in. And, you know, I've complained about the media, chicken and egg. You know, is this turning into Kim Kardashian and he's famous for famous sake because we want him to be, or because it sells papers? It sells papers. He's cheered on that stage. Here's where I'm going with your question. 2 things. What I want to do, which is not give lip service to this insane, you can create jobs out of thin air. I'm going to create no, that's not what a mayor does. A mayor creates conditions, leadership, and the one thing, and I believe this, that a mayor can do to make life easier for people who live, and this is important, on the outskirts of this city. And if anybody remembers a man named David Miller, and I think it should be said, I actually think he lives in this ward. Mark, does he live in this ward? Okay. The Junction. David Miller would be mayor today if there was no garbage strike. I believe that absolutely. Now, I didn't pay attention to municipal politics then. I'm much more into Obama and the stupid Congress. But he would be mayor if that garbage strike didn't happen. We would not know the Rob Ford debacle. Now, why do I turn that to your question? Because where the jobs are scarcest, where people are not connected when they're in TCHC, community housing, in the outskirts of the city, Scarborough. That was the whole idea of Transit City. If anybody remembers what Transit City was, the idea was to connect Toronto. I'm not going to stand here and pretend that's my idea. That was what David Miller woke up in the morning and went to bed thinking about. How do you make somebody who lives in an apartment further out than Regent Park be able to come down, crisscross the city to get a job? To get a job that exists, but that person may not be able to get to. That, to me, is what a mayor does to increase the connection with people in communities that are underserved. And there's a second aspect, because you said something that I wasn't going to talk about tonight, but you asked about criminal records. Anybody reading the newspaper lately, and I think this is a fascinating thing, fascinating. If you've had the police come talk to you, if you've had the police accuse you of a crime, if you've been charged with a crime, and you were smart enough to hire me as your lawyer, not you, of course, but anybody, and I got the charges dropped, the cops were lying, the person who set you up was lying, blah, 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 you would think you would be able to go on and be a productive, contributing member of society. Presumed innocent. You actually, let's assume you actually didn't do it. That person now can't get a job. Any background check shows them to be a person of interest. Now, again, I know the room that I'm in. This may not really get you going. I don't mean you specifically, but it may not get you going. But in this world that we live in, where not everything is about me and my area and where I grew up, and it's much more about people who are underserved, that's what a mayor does. It doesn't take care of the people who can take care of themselves. Millionaires, people who are successful, Rosedale, Forest Hill, Moore Park, Leaside, they're always going to be okay. What a real mayor does is want everybody's boat to come up. And we are putting out, and I'm not going to say this so that somebody else copies it, but we are putting out a policy that as mayor, and this is going to come out in the next few weeks, the most important thing I would do with my seat on the police board is make sure that mentally ill people who have been stopped by police or taken to hospitals, again, a little bit inside baseball, there is a record that's kept by the Toronto Police Service that will literally ruin your life. So when you talk about this and the clients I have who can't find work, they tell me this all the time. A background check done, it shows that charges were dropped, I can't get hired. So these are real things a mayor could do if the mayor actually showed up. Actually showed up at a meeting that they have a seat on. You know about Waterfront Toronto, the guy never makes a meeting, then complains about Sugar Beach happening while he's in rehab. Happened 3 years ago. So my view is a mayor who actually cares, just cares and shows up. That's my answer to you.
So we've actually got to finish up. I tell you, is that a wrap-up sign or a question sign?
What can we do to help you get into a debate?
What can we do to help you get in a debate? So I'm going to have you answer that and do your wrap-up, and then we're done.
Now I like you, whoever you are, sir. I wasn't even going to go there because, you know, to me, I'm not doing this to raise money. I mean, every 4 days, and there's somebody in the front row who sends them to me, and it drives me.
Somebody who's got some leadership ideas.
Well, I appreciate that, and you can follow me around everywhere. You know, let's go to the question about the debate. Here's what it is. We showed up for the first time in our poll, not our poll, because we decided, no, well, actually, you want me to do a little inside baseball? I'll do a little shtick. You want to know how I was going to get into a debate? And this is, to me, sickening. It's sickening. We were told, and I'm saying this openly, if you really want to know how the sausage is made, because I didn't, we were told that if we pay $20,000, and I mean, I work for a living, I'm a legal aid lawyer, proud of it, 20% of my practice I do pro bono for the mentally ill. Don't care who makes fun of it, don't care who likes it, couldn't give a crap. So the idea of spending $20,000 to me is a lot of money. We were guaranteed, and we were told all over the board by different campaign people, I've met people in power through this experience that you can't imagine. You pay $20,000, you commission a poll, you will show up ahead of 2 people. That will be used, the papers will use it, you can do it, but if it gets out, you're going to look like a joke, but we're the kind of company that won't do it. As you all know, there is a very fringe candidate, very fringe. She does YouTube videos with weird crap. She tried to pull it, and it got out. And it took away all of the credibility. I was never going to do it. I'm not going to sell out to do this. I don't care if 6 people vote for me or 60,000. Don't care. This is about putting something out. So how do I get into a debate if I could? Is people in this room just telling other people you came to see me. You don't have to agree with everything I think. I mean, there's 31 flavors of ice cream. Not everybody is supposed to agree. But if you think I'm giving it to you straight, if you think there's something breath of fresh air about it, and this is not how a politician's supposed to talk. I mean, you can see all the notes in my hand. I mean, you can see the script I'm clearly reading from. Contact whoever writes for the paper that you choose to read. Say, wait a minute, I went to see this guy. He doesn't want my money. I'm not even asking for your email address. I get sent every 3 days an email from Olivia Chow saying I'm an underdog. I've only raised $1.3 million. Nobody else can fight Rob Ford. Send me money. I'm an underdog. Give me a chance. It boggles my mind. This is a woman this is like a coronation in this city. And if you think Ford is polarizing, I worry about what happens when other big candidates become in. This is about providing a mandate that people just believe in. So to your question, just tell people and contact people in the press that you respect, editors and reporters, and say, I'd like to hear more from him. And if he had the same spotlight on a stage with the other 4 or 5, imagine how I would do, not just in this weird context where I'm talking at you, but when I have 5 people there that I'm being a lie detector about and calling BS on.
Thanks for coming, everyone. We'll see you out in the lobby.